Well, welcome to kind of like ongoing session, I guess. We will have a break after this segment, so hold on for just a little bit longer. I'm Jamie Pavey. I've served as the director for the Center of Environmental Leadership at Earlham College, which is in Indiana, and I'm also a CURC board member. So for our second presentation focused on partnerships for people and the planet, I'd like to welcome Jennifer Maxwell, Sustainability Program Director at Appalachian State University, and Chandler Cummins, Vice President of Advanced Composting Technologies. Jennifer has been with Appalachian State University since 2006, and she leads many campus sustainability programs, including their University Zero Waste Commitment, the Mountaineer Food Hub and Free Store, Green Suite engagement programs, Green Labs program development, sustainable purchasing, event planning, and the sustainability film series. Deep breath. That's a lot of stuff, Jennifer. And she is also a founding member of the App State Sustainability Council and Living Green Residential Learning Community. Chandler, the second presenter, has been in the environmental industry for over 35 years. Currently, he is the Vice President for Advanced Composting Technologies, LLC, and has been with that group since 2008. ACT, Advanced Composting Technologies, has over 450 facilities internationally, and they successfully compost over 80,000 tons annually. So with that, I will turn it over to you two.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Hey, Chandler.
Hey, Jen, good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Hello, everyone. We're excited to be here with you today. Thanks so much to CURC and NRC for NRC for hosting CURC for this workshop, and CURC for asking us to share and be a part of the story of partnerships. I'm going to share my screen and hope that it works well. Okay, everybody see that okay? All right, great. So I'm going to get started. Thanks again, Jamie, for the introduction. I have been at App State for a really long time, and I just wanted to share that I, in thinking about these conversations and being a part of the conversation about this workshop and just partnerships in general, I think so much of the work that we all do within sustainability, we couldn't do it without partnerships. The more I talk about it, it's kind of like when you start thinking about buying a car and then you see that same car everywhere. As soon as we started talking about partnerships, the word partnership came up everywhere. I recently went to a North Carolina food waste stakeholders meeting, and the theme was partnerships. And so we really just could not do this work without a collaborative approach. And so I'm excited to share about that a little bit and continue these conversations today. Uh-oh. My slides are not advancing. Any tech tips?
Jen, are you presenting from a browser or your desktop?
Laptop.
Like online or on your desktop?
Oh, it's not on my desktop.
Can you go ahead and download it and present from your desktop?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you.
Give me one sec. Sorry, everybody. Gotta love technology.
I can tell it's going to work any second now.
Thanks, Chandler. You have great faith in me.
I do, Jen.
All right, let's see here. I'm going to try again. Share screen.
Boom.
Okay. All right, is that working? Do you all see a picture of a campus? Good.
Yes.
Okay, just a little bit real quick about App State. We are a rural mountain campus in Western North Carolina, a little town called Boone. That has really kind of exploded over the years. And I have been here for a lot of years to see that. We're over 20,000 students now, 1,200 acres, 375 developed, 30 academic buildings, 18 residence halls. We house about 6,100 students on campus. We have 10 on-campus dining facilities, and those range from kind of all you care to eat to grab and go. And then we have 11 recreational and athletic facilities on campus. So quite large space in a small town. And so we do have quite a footprint. And so we, before we get started any further, I'm going to let Chandler talk just a little bit about advanced composting and who they are.
So we've been composting since 1998, and in the early 2000s.
Use this.
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Jen?
I didn't. I think somebody else had their mute off.
In the early 2000s, we were approached from USDA in North Carolina and asked if they had heard a little bit about our forced air technology, and they were wondering if it would help with a problem that they were having, which was with animal mortality at the hog farms and chicken farms and turkey farms and dairies across the state. And, you know, when we first started thinking about that, we were like, I'm not real sure if we want to get into that. But about 420 facilities later, we're fully in the mortality business. But it was about 2008, Jen approached us about food waste at Appalachian State. And until then, we hadn't even thought about it. But since then, we've built about 20 to 25 food waste facilities, as well as some industrial facilities dealing with other organic waste, such as sugarcane waste and tobacco waste. And at any rate, we've grown over the years. We've always wanted to innovate to make composting easier, faster, more biosecure, hotter, faster, chop it up on the front end, get rid of it. We found that speeding it up with technology, we can reduce the footprint, pay for the technology because you reduce the building size. We're always looking at the next generation, what's around the corner. But today we do pre-processing and forced air, and that's who we are.
Thanks, Chandler. Oh my gosh.
The next slide.
Yeah. It has stopped working for me. Okay, try again.
We'll just go one slide at a time.
So if you don't go into slideshow mode too, that it's just a last ditch effort. Yeah, you can just advance
There you
it.
go.
Zoom in.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not letting me use my arrows here, but anyway. Okay, I'm going to take us on a little walk down memory lane. So our sustainability office started around the same time as Leanna's, around 2008. I've been here for a really long time. I did my undergrad at App State and actually got involved in composting as a student, kind of on a whim, but I'm really grateful for that. And so I've had the pleasure of being involved in this process truly from the very beginning. So we started down the road of wanting to close the loop and wanting to look at alternatives for particularly our organics waste on campus. And so we basically started in 1999, and it was a student project. We started with You can see a photo here, and yes, that is me in the tie-dye many years ago. But we started pretty low tech, you know, with this class, and we wanted to do just coffee grounds from our coffee shops and some lettuce and lemons from a veggie prep area. And so we had a faculty mentor and the original recycling coordinator for the university. Jim Rice was kind of our staff mentor and willing to sort of work with this class to start this project and take it on. And we, North Carolina requires permitting for composting here. And so we had our first permit in 2000. That was also kind of part of the creation of the program through that sustainable resource management course. And so, you know, we, like I said, started really low tech. I had a friend who, we found an old blower motor in the roll off and bought some perforated pipe that you can see here. And my friend tinkered with and fixed the blower motor, and we got forced air going. Kind of at the recommendation of the professor who had extensive knowledge of composting and resource management, sustainable resource management. And so they were familiar with forced air. So it, you know, it can be done on a small space and it can be done pretty low tech, but we pretty quickly expanded beyond our space and wanted some opportunities to expand more, had some water quality concerns working with North Carolina Department of Water Quality, and that kind of led us to these conversations that Chandler mentioned earlier of where do we go from here and what can we do to kind of upgrade our program. So we opened our facility, our advanced composting facility, and you see it in the photo here in 2011. It was the first food waste facility of its kind. And so I'll touch on just a little bit about, you know, those conversations that we had with advanced composting. I was trying to recall when Chandler and I first started talking exactly when we met, but it was around 2008 when I reached out and we started those conversations. We are a type 3 facility here, so we take pre and post consumer. As I mentioned, we're permitted in the state of North Carolina. And one other showcase for what we've done here is the ability to be able to partner with a local business as well. And so we take a lot of pride in trying to support our local economy. And so the fact that advanced composting was right down the road in Candler, North Carolina was really close to us. And so that was another kind of selling point for us to be able to push permission for this facility. And so, like Chandler said, around 2008, I started talking with them. And originally, we had looked at some grant funding through the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, Research and Development. But it turns out that state institutions were exempt from that. So we got really excited about the collaboration and thinking that we'd be able to write this grant together, and advanced composting would be able to kind of transition to some food waste facilities beyond animal mortality. And we would be able to have some funding to fund our facility. And it was just a win-win. And so it was quite a letdown when we found out that state institutions were exempt from this grant funding. So we said from there, like, let's keep the conversations going. How do we keep talking, and how do we come to some kind of agreement so we can still make this project happen? So I'm going to switch it back to Chandler, and he's going to talk just a little bit about how we kept talking and continued building that partnership.
Thanks, Jen. So back in 2008, or when we first met and started talking about the project, and looking at this slide reminds me of all the difficulties of just finding on your campus a place that met all the permits and was a place that you could bring the waste to easy enough. You could use the finished product for taking the landscape into all your gardening projects there on campus. And thinking with all your acres up there, that would be pretty easily done. But Jen and I jumped in the truck and started driving from facility to facility and proving that theory wrong, that it was not going to be an easy task after all. But the collaboration was great. We not only getting to see a beautiful city and getting to see all the surrounding mountains, but seeing all the behind the background pieces of Appalachian State was a fun piece. We can go to the next slide if you would. So once we finally found a site that met the permits, the campus was happy with it. It worked for Jen and her group, and we started working towards what are the other pieces. And Jen, I remember us going to the cafeterias and talking to some of the managers there, and their fears and concerns of smells and all the other products that we get thrown into the waste, and how to sort and it was a big piece of trying to get the post-consumer and pre-consumer waste to the composter without other trash or other non-organics coming into us, as well as just changing the perception that it doesn't have to be gross. You know, as soon as you mix a waste with carbon, the smell is virtually gone. Once you start composting, it becomes a roasted smell and not a sour smell that a lot of people think of. So changing perception on campus was a big piece. Then we started into designing the actual project to fit their needs then, but their needs 5 years and 10 years down the road as well. We've always provided training and follow-up service to learn from our projects and learn from our customers. But with Appalachian State, we really had a lot of opportunity for a lot of growth and learning. Anything you want to say on that slide, Jen?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and just listen to you talk just reminds me, you know, that it was the beauty of having you know, advanced composting a part of that process, and to go in and store and troubleshoot some of that stuff. So it, you know, a lot of times, and I don't know, a lot of people that work in waste can sometimes feel like one person against the world. and it can be that way a lot of times. There's this one waste reduction coordinator at a university and they're really pushing hard, and so it feels like, you know, Jen Maxwell against the world. And one of the beauties of this collaboration was having Chandler and their team here on campus on site, thinking through all of the different processes, you know, thinking about what the design build looks like. And, you know, just like you said, we rode around the truck looking for different locations. And we even had Department of Environmental Quality at the table from the very beginning as well. And so just really trying to think through, you know, having more of a voice than just one person or one small department's voice. And so that's one of the beauties too, I think, of this partnership. And we definitely also became fast friends, you know, and so there's always beauty in that, and human connection as well.
Absolutely.
So I'll talk just a little bit about kind of, you know, how App State specifically benefited from the relationship. I started to touch on that a little bit, but, you know, we have this beautiful facility that we were able to really showcase, and it really showcased our commitment to zero waste and some of our goals. As a university, we have beautiful compost finished product that we're able to use daily in our landscape application. You can see to the right some of our very beautiful finished product here. And so just, you know, it was from aesthetics perspective too, just having this model facility, and also it allowed us to really expand beyond what we were doing on that same footprint when we were doing it pretty low tech. Academic integration has been huge for us, an area that I am proud of, but I think that we could be doing a lot more. And so, you know, but again, this allowed for sort of increased internship opportunities. We've had some students who've done some work here, you know, at our facility, working with facilities, and then working with our office, doing some training and outreach. We've had a variety of different student opportunities and really tried to provide. One of our most important things for our student work is developing learning outcomes that you know, are beneficial. It's one thing to have a student come and work and haul and collect compost, but what are they really learning? And so we're able to build in some internship opportunities there. There's research opportunities for students and faculty, and I feel like advanced composting has certainly not always been necessarily involved in those pieces, but always available for those student learning outcomes, and for students and faculty to reach out, you know, and talk with them about what they're doing and sort of get involved. And I'd say, you know, on the flip side of that, and Chandler may touch on this too, but one of the things I didn't really think about when we were talking before too is the potential to connect with students that may be really interested, particularly in organics work, and for them to connect with and potentially work with advanced composting in the future as well. It's been an educational tool, and somebody mentioned earlier just about how, you know, campuses are can be really innovative and really a great showcase for different, you know, we can test things out, and we can be kind of a showcase for different model for different communities. And so this facility has been a really great tool for us to host tours and to just really get people thinking a little bit more about their impact, and that whether that's student tours or local community tours. We've had gosh, probably hundreds of tours over these years, and we've had anywhere from interested nonprofits to other communities who've come in that have actually gone on and toured our facility and then worked with advanced composting to build one similar, you know. So that's been a benefit both ways as well.
And to see the aha moments at a couple of those tours that I've been a part of through the years, where a student can look at, oh, that's where that bucket goes to. I know that collection bucket, and that's the product that it turns into. That's amazing, you know, to see that that light turn on is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. Addressing challenges, I think, again, going back to just sort of having more people at the table, and you know, we've worked with Advanced and Chandler specifically over the years, and continue to when it comes to you know, any of our technical difficulties that we've had. You know, we definitely was growing pains for their process, because animal mortality is treated very differently than food waste, and so we learned that together. We have tested a lot of products in the facility for compostability, you know, and that allows us to really focus a lot more upstream on our purchasing and sourcing efforts. The bottom right picture here, and I'm sorry that it's kind of small, but we went back in and put a mixer. I call it a mixer grinder because it has knives, but it's a piece of technology that was developed through advanced composting for that pre-processing that Chandler mentioned earlier. And so, you know, really just trying to think about ways, especially when we expanded to more food service ware, and you know, trying to do more front of house composting. This piece of equipment has been huge for us, and so we wouldn't have been able to do that.
To expand again in that same footprint.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I remember all the different products we kept throwing in there, from the different recycling bags to the different recyclable forks and knives, and seeing what came out at the other end. And again, that's pre-processing to the composting part. So we're just chopping it up, creating the diet, capturing the water, and then putting it over on the air and starting the composting process. So it's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Another benefit really is the ability to expand. And so I touched on that earlier. We had outgrown the space we were in. This allowed us to really expand. Now the goal is fill this facility up and need to expand more. And because we definitely have more availability of composting than the facility can hold, and we built to the best of our ability, and we thought through that. But again, all of that went through that process of where are we going to put this facility and how much footprint do we have. And so but we've been able to really expand our efforts, and we've learned a lot. We are still there's so many challenges and barriers to contamination being one of the worst. Now post-pandemic, supply chain management is our issues, and there's a lot of different difficulties that we've had to face with our program. But again, it's been really nice to be able to have sort of advanced composting as a sounding board to continue to think through these efforts. All right, back to you, Chandler.
So our benefits are just, they definitely outweigh everything that I'm sure Appalachian State got from us, because Jen is such a wonderful resource. From the time that I met her, and her Excel spreadsheet on the tonnage that comes from the different departments across the campus, as well as the different types of products that are organic that we could compost and could bring into the facility. I still use that program today, trying to help other universities and private industries that are trying to do food waste and collections, and decide how much waste they can actually, what they want to try to permit to. And the facility itself, through the years, I don't know how many people I've sent up to Appalachian State, but it's been numerous. And we've sold quite a few facilities because of Appalachian State, obviously. But it's such a picturesque site to go to, because the pictures that we're not showing you is the backdrop behind the facility is the Appalachian Mountains, and it's such a perfect facility to show off. If you go to the next slide. Again, we started with animal mortality because we were brought over to it. And it's a great industry to be a partner of, because it needs so much greening to move forward, and it's one that truly wants to green up. Animal mortality happens, but it's kind of a sad piece of the industry. And it's really that 2 to 3% of mortality that happens, everywhere. But when you've got a lot of animals on a site, 2 to 3% adds up to a product that needs to go away. And we thought going from whole animals down to processed food, that'll be simple. It's no big deal. There's no challenge in that. We can take care of that, Jen. And didn't realize that a lot of the food has been sanitized, so the microbes aren't there anymore. They've been washed off or cooked off and heated up, but we still have the carbon and nitrogen to deal with. If you go to the next slide. So we started trying to figure out, how do we compost this sanitary product to get the natural organisms that were on it originally back in it to start eating. And some of the citrus and root crops are especially hard to kind of get going, because nature's got a antimicrobial on the outside of the fruit and the root to help protect the starch and the sugar on the inside. So unless you break it open, it's hard to get in there. So again, learning curves as we went along. And now we're pitching back some of the hot compost to always bring the microbe that's hungry for the food back into the system to get it eating faster. The design of the system is so that the feedstock coming from the cafeterias mixed in with the carbon source. You always need carbon because microbes love carbon. It's kind of like potato chips or popcorn. They eat a lot of it. And what the food waste piece is mainly nitrogen, but there's also a lot of carbon in there. So getting that diet right has been a challenge, and a part of the learning curve as well. And the preprocessor really allows us to design that diet exactly every time. You know, we put exact amount of carbon to blend with the type food waste that's coming in that day to get our carbon nitrogen right as well as our moisture right, so that the microbes are hungry. And then when we pitch the live bacteria in via the active compost, it gets mixed into that through that preprocessor, and then you throw it on the air and they get active and hot fast. We'll get 150 degrees usually by day one. We'll hold those temperatures for a few days, and by day 14 we're basically done composting. You can go to the next slide.
Okay. Does not like me today.
It's been great getting to I'll start back with the audience there at Appalachian State. You know, from the folks on your crew, Jen, that have been so helpful through the years, as well as landscape crew that uses the end product. And I think now they've taken over your labor piece for composting it. And to the food producers, the cafeterias, you're still doing some of the football games and soccer games, I think, as well.
Yeah.
And the challenges there of what goes into that compost waste bin versus a trash waste bin or other recycling bin. The new audience beyond that, other universities, private collectors in towns. Danny's Dumpsters was one of our first. He's there out of Asheville, and he collects from a lot of restaurants, but also started collecting at actual residences, to nonprofits where they're doing farm to table type work, as well as they have some industrial work, and just needed to get rid of their organics and be able to turn that into nitrogen to be able to rebuild the soils back up. That's on Grand Turk down in the Caribbean, and soils get washed away with every big storm that comes through. So building soils back up is a big piece. And they talked to Appalachian State about how do you calculate how much food waste you've got to deal with, and how's the process working for you. So it's been great building the new connections from the collaborative effort from Appalachian State. You can go to the next slide.
Well, I think I was just going to jump in here and just kind of talk about, Chandler mentioned this, just the different food waste facilities they have in multiple states, and just that ability to be able to expand. I think we can't do any of this without partnerships. We call ourselves in our office conveners, connectors. Every aspect of what we're doing all the time is thinking about these types of relationships, and we're all much better together. And so any opportunity to find ways to make connections. Even CURC, was always like that for me. It was the partnership with CURC to really make these connections with other schools and how we might be able to, we're just better together. And so I think that's why these conversations continue to be so important. And then I just wanted to touch really quickly on kind of the ripple effect. I try to remind myself of that all the time because I can get really frustrated, and I can talk about all the great things going on at App State, but there's a lot of challenges and barriers too. And so we still have a lot of work to do here, but it's really nice to know that through these ongoing partnerships, that ripple effect is happening. And so we're creating change worldwide, and whether that be expansion at different schools or in the commercial sector with someone like advanced composting, all of this work is allowing us to create a larger movement and more lasting change. And so I just really appreciate seeing and being a part of it. I think that was us. Anything else you wanted to add, Chandler?
I'll just add that it's been great getting to learn from Appalachian State, and you in particular, Jen, over the years, and y'all are still teaching us as we continue to expand. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks. I really appreciate you presenting today too and being here to be part of this. And it's really nice to get to sort of reconnect.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks to both of you for that. We do have a few questions that were posted in the chat, and the first one actually kind of picks up on that thread that you were just finishing up with, Jennifer. So I think it could be good to address it first. So the question says, what I think one of the most important impacts of these partnerships is how it expands, enhances, establishes greater waste reduction for the entire region, not just the individual partners. Could you speak to the collective benefit to the Boone, North Carolina region in terms of diverting food waste from the landfill/incinerator?
I can, and so, I can't really quantitatively share specific numbers, but I will say, kind of going back to that model facility, for different areas and communities, we were certainly a model facility for our county. One of the reasons that we created a composting facility on campus to begin with is because we didn't have a municipal facility at all, and we still don't. But we are closer than we've ever been in the Watauga County region of having a facility, and different representatives from Watauga County have been to and visited, and been a part of the visited App State's facility, worked with advanced composting on potential designs, worked with different consultants on what that might look like. And that really allowed us to, again, sort of be a model for that. One of the photos was NC State, and we, NC State built a facility working with advanced. And so I think, again, just really trying to be a model and really show the feasibility of doing something like that to tackle organics waste. We've been able to make a lot of again, that ripple effect of really just, how can we help people think through? I always try to think about that again in my role of here at App State. Like, my role is at App State, but it's really important for me to go beyond the walls of App State and educate more. And so anytime that I can do that, I try to take advantage of it. And so I think for that, we would all say that we're doing those types of things. And so I think it's been ultimately a benefit, not only to our local community and state, but region as well.
And I think it was the work that we started with Watauga County that Henderson County in North Carolina piggybacked off of, and did go ahead and build a facility for food waste and other organic waste. But it was started there at Appalachian for the Watauga County folks.
And it's funny because you can feel a couple ways about that. It's like there's definitely a part of me that gets frustrated because we built this facility a lot of years ago and we still haven't maxed it out. And so my sense of urgency in my role is very great, but not so much in everyone else's role. And so there's a lot of challenges, like I said, and things that we want to try to get right. And there's pushing that happens. And so I can be frustrated that, NC State, for example, and I love NC State to death, but I could be frustrated and say, well, they built a facility and now they're like leaps and bounds further along than App State. And that's true. And so I can be frustrated about that, or I can say, hey, I was a part of that. And it's bigger again than just App State. And so I try to take the optimistic road for most of the time, of again, that we're advancing things, whether it's necessarily happening right here on campus or not.
Okay, then there's a few more kind of like nitty-gritty kind of questions, I guess, more specific. So are you composting those like compostable PLA utensils in this facility, or the compostable like paper clamshells and cups? So things that might come like from dining services of like takeout situation.
So we are, and that was part of the need for the mixer and that pre-processing, because it really does a great job of helping break that stuff down. It is still a challenge for us. I'll share a story that we're dealing with right now as we speak. Staffing, difficulties of staffing. So at night, App State has been going to paper the compostable plates rather than dishes because they don't have a dishwasher. And so there's 2,000 to 3,000 plates a day. So it is not ideal for our program. That's too much for us to be able to handle. And we don't have the space footprint to windrow it and just let it sit. And so that's a challenge that we're dealing with right now. But we do compost that stuff in our facility. And we, like I mentioned earlier, we have the ability to be able to test. And so knowing and a reasonable amount, like 2,000 to 3,000 plates a day is not a reasonable amount. And so we met actually 2 days ago with our new director of campus dining and have been assured that, the low staff excuse is not an excuse anymore. We just have to figure out how to work right and work toward our commitments. And so they're working on that. So we won't have that issue anymore. But yes, we do that stuff. And so far we've been able to manage it. When you get a nested sleeve of cups or nested plates, it can be a problem, but that mixer seems to really help. Even with the utensils, they break them up. It breaks them up into smaller pieces. And so they're definitely there. Sometimes when we go to curing, they're still there a little bit. And so that's why we kind of implemented the screening process. And so we can let some of that stuff cure out a little bit longer and it'll break down, but it does take longer. So it can hinder your process, but we've tried to do enough pre-processing and then post-processing to address any of those issues.
And are there some products that you found that you like better than others?
Yeah, I mean the plant-based plastic, like the clear that they look like plastic, they're a problem for so many reasons, and those take a whole lot longer to break down, and so they're not really ideal. So you would see those in for like cold iced coffees or smoothies, those types of plant-based plastics. Those aren't great. The utensils aren't great, but they, again, we can kind of screen them out. Ideally, we just limit the amount of disposables that we can go with, but when you have 30,000 people in a stadium, 30 to 40,000 people, you're not going to be given china and silver. So you have to have some sort of alternative, and so it's definitely a balance. But the paper compostable products certainly break down a whole lot quicker than those PLA plastics. And then the bags, compostable bags, seem to break down pretty quickly. They certainly can get hung up around the middle of that mixer. And so as much as we can process without bags. That's pretty helpful, and we try to do that for the most part, but there are some areas where we still need to use compostable bags. We just try to limit that.
Okay, a couple other real quick ones. So how is the finished product being used?
So they use it in plant beds across our campus gardens, and as a soil amendment. They've done some mitigating of our, we have what's called the mall on campus, which is the middle of campus, and it's a large green space, and it's really hard to keep grass growing there. And so they go in and reseed, and they are using compost for that application as well. Some root rehabilitation, erosion control. We have a sustainable development teaching farm, and they use a lot of it at the teaching farm as well. And so anywhere that we can, we try to use it, and we've really tried to do a lot more education of our staff about the benefits of it to increase the usage as well. And so we are not selling it, or we do give it away sometimes to K through 12 schools or nonprofits, but we have the ability to be able to through our permit. But right now our goals are really to try to use as much of it as we can right back here on campus.
And do you have an estimate about how much you're processing daily, like what you're taking in?
At least a couple of 1,000 pounds a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Give or take.
What kind of staffing do you have to make it run?
So that's a great question. So honestly, when we first started, when we built the facility and we started down this road, we had one full-time staff member that was a compost facility coordinator, so 40 hours a week. One of the people in that position moved on, and landscaping has kind of changed to a little bit different model. And so instead of replacing that position, it was absorbed into, we have a collection crew of 3 that are now doing recycling and compost collection. And then the more high level permitting, planning, and program development stuff is sort of managed by the landscape superintendent team of 2. And so I honestly think that it's at least 1 40-hour per week full-time position, and you could even go beyond that. You know, we could expand and do a whole lot more if we had more. That's why we've tried to create opportunities for students to work and stuff. So I really feel like you at least need to have 1 full-time person, and I'm hoping that they might go back to that, because some of the challenges that we're dealing with are also because that collections crew doesn't have 40 hours to spend just on compost. And so you know, it needs to be picked up daily, and they need to be picking it up 3 days a week. And so I'm hoping to see us kind of go back to the 1 full-time coordinator.
Okay, great. Thanks again, Jen and Chandler.
Thanks, Jamie.
That was gives us all something to aspire to, I think, that program.
Thanks.
Okay, so now that we've had a chance to hear from our first 5 presenters this afternoon about partnerships between colleges and universities and local government, as well as with the commercial sector in the example that we just heard, I'd like to move us into a brainstorming activity in which we can take some quiet, reflective, and collaborative time to create an idea board on which we can all collectively add our thoughts for possible project ideas and partnerships that we could pursue in the future. All too often, we attend workshops and conferences that inspire us and spark ideas for initiatives we can implement back at our institutions. But when we return to the daily grind of the office and the realities of our campuses, those ideas live only in the notes that we took, as opposed to taking shape as pilot programs or real life projects. Our hope with this activity is that we can flesh out those ideas together, and then we will send our collective brainstorm back to all of you after the workshop to continue the momentum and hopefully make them a reality. So there was just a link put in the chat, and if you clicked on that, it will take you to these Google Slides that are also being shown on the screen. And so for about 5 minutes, we're going to ask you to work on the first 2 slides titled Collegiate and Government Partnerships Potential Partner Brainstorm. And then the second one is focused on commercial sector partnerships. And to start adding possible government agencies on the first one or businesses on the second one in your area that you could potentially partner with. So these could be actual names of agencies or businesses specific to your region, or more general partners that you will try to identify in your area. So we're thinking everyone will kind of work silently and start adding ideas to the boards. It looks like maybe people are already adding things to the board, which is great. And we'll take about 5 minutes for that, and then I'll kind of prompt you, and we'll move to the next 2 slides, which have to do with actual possible projects that could be pursued with those partners. And we will also duplicate slides. So if it starts getting full, don't worry about it. We will add another slide. Just kind of pay attention to what the header on the slide is to make sure that you're putting things kind of in the right place. So we'll start. Actually, we may do more like 4 minutes on each of these since we ran a little over on the questions. So it looks like we're having lots of activity on the collegiate and government partnerships slide. Make sure you also think about the second slide, which is focused on collegiate and commercial sector partnerships. And we'll just give it maybe another minute with these, and then we'll move on to the next 2 slides. or I guess if you've kind of exhausted your lists on the first two, feel free to go on to the next two, which are focused more on actual potential project ideas. Okay, it looks like there are lots of great ideas flowing in, and feel free to keep adding things, but I did want to open it up if anybody is interested in kind of sharing out some great idea that you have that you would like to kind of get some feedback on, or hear some or have a question about. We have a few more minutes before we will head to a break. And you can raise your hand and we can unmute you if you want to chime in. Maybe people are just happy getting their thoughts down.
Don't freak out if your entries disappear. I created another slide and I'm going to cut some out and copy and put them onto another slide.
Okay, well, feel free to keep adding ideas and we will come back to this actually after the next session with a couple more slides with different potential partner groups. But Leanna, I think we're heading to a break now, right? Until 3?
Yeah, I'm not sure I put that in the run of show script, but yes.
Okay, so yeah, so we have a 15-minute break and then we will have another group of folks presenting beginning at 3 o'clock.